ask you to join me in making a whole lot of noise and giving a big Palm Beach welcome to the next Vice President of the United States of America, Senator Kaine.
Wow, how about give a big round to Reverend Higginbottom. What a great theater. Un líder especial, un ministerio especial y un apoyante especial. Mil gracias por todo su apoyo y vamos a ganar. Vamos a ganar. Hey, Palm Beach. I didn't realize we were going to be in the shadow of Trump Plaza here. I mean, wow. You guys are taking it right to them. I like this. I like your energy. I like your fight. And I am so glad to be back with you. I feel like I got to get an apartment in Florida. They're sending me here so much. As you know, when Hillary Clinton announced me as her running mate, she brought me to Florida to do the rollout in Miami on July 23rd, and we have been all over Florida, including Palm Beach County since. Did you guys know you were important? I hope you know that. I hope you know how important you are. We sort of wonder if you guys should think about changing your name from the Sunshine State to the Close Election State. I mean, every 4 years, you start with 50 states and then you whittle it down to 12 or 13 battleground states, and then you whittle it down to 3 or 4 states at the end that are the checkmaters that'll decide, and you guys are always in the 3 or 4. Hey, wait a minute, are you toying with us? Is there something going on here? It really is exciting to be in Florida, and I'll get to my punchline. I'll finish up here too, but you really are a checkmate state. That's more than a battleground state. A checkmate state, you got 50 states. You got about 12 or 13 battleground states where the battle is really close and both sides are contesting. But you only have a couple. Well, there goes my notes. Okay, it's going to be a lot shorter speech now. You only have a couple of states. Only a couple of states that are checkmate. Checkmate state is if the other guy doesn't win, we got it. We got it in the bag. If you put the electoral votes behind Hillary Clinton here in Florida, the other side has no path to win. That's great. That means you got a lot of power. Also means you got a lot of responsibility. I'll tell you the good thing about it. Maybe you don't like to stay up till Mountain Time to know who the president is, or Pacific Time. Here in Florida, you only have to stay up to Eastern Time, because if we win for Hillary here, it is over. She's going to be president, and you can make it happen. You can make it happen. You know that early vote started today. And how many, raise your hand if you've already voted. Give them a big round of applause. That is so exciting. If you need to know information about your registration status or about where to vote, all you have to do is go to iwillvote.com, voyavotar2016.com, and that will give you information about how to vote. You can tell others that too. And I will really encourage you to early vote. You only get to vote once, so some of you might wonder, well, why early vote rather than late? But I'll tell you that the reason that early vote helps is you start to get real data with early vote. Polls can be wrong. Polls have been wrong. But with early vote, we start to really know how the race is going. We start to be able to look at registrations and absentee vote requests and early vote numbers, and then we know, wow, we got some momentum. In fact, we're seeing great momentum in early vote all around this country. That's good. So that's the first thing early voting does. It gives us the ability to just make sure how the race is going, so we don't have to rely on polls. And the second thing that's really important is this. The more vote early, then we can take all of our organizers and spend time at the end, instead of on everybody, spend time on the few that haven't voted. So big early vote is a way to win elections, and I would encourage you, if you can, to go vote early. And I know Reverend Higginbottom kind of gave you the description about how to do it. let me again just tell you how excited I am to be here with you. You heard from my great friend, Senator Bill Nelson, right? He is a great guy. I got elected to the Senate in 2013 and had known Bill by reputation but didn't know him personally. And now I've got a chance to work with him. We're on the Armed Services Committee together. I have a boy who is a Marine Infantry commander who's deployed overseas. And Bill and his wife Grace and Ann and I have gotten to be very, very close. He's somebody who is a super member of the Senate, helping not only Florida, but helping the entire United States. Other folks who are really important are here. Your Congresswoman Lois Frankel, so glad to be with Lois, absolutely. I've got a particular affection for Lois because prior to being a congresista, ella fue un alcalde, she was a mayor. And I used to be a mayor, and once a mayor, always a mayor. And so Lois, thank you for your service. And then we also have your current mayor, Geraldine Wheel. Where are you, Madam Mayor? Right here, thank you so much. Bobby Powell, your state rep. Where is Rep Powell? Good round of applause, that's great. And then U.S. Rep Ted Deutsch. Where's Ted? I didn't have a chance to say hi. Okay, he was here and he was speaking, but he was probably going to 5 other events. But anyway, this is really, really good to come and have a chance to be together. I want to talk about 3 things. I want to talk about the debates and how well Hillary did and how she showed the whole nation she should be president. Then I want to talk about the stakes in this race and some contrasts on key issues between Hillary and between Donald Trump. And then the last thing I want to talk about is how are we going to win? We got to make sure that we win, and I'll finish there. The debates. Hillary went 3 for 3, right? I mean, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. Hillary showed her preparation, intelligence, skill, knowledge of the themes, knowledge of the ideas. That didn't surprise us. She's as well prepared as anybody who's ever been nominated. President Obama said that at the convention back in July. But the thing that I liked the most was her poise, her grace, her courage, her backbone, her stamina. I mean, that was what was so powerful. And you know, the stamina thing, at the end of the first debate, hour and a half, your last 5 minutes or so, Lester Holt challenged Donald Trump for something he had said. You know, Mr. Trump, you said she doesn't look presidential. What did you mean by that? Were you talking about her gender? Were you talking about her looks? What did you mean? And he said, no, I was talking about her stamina. Now, this is a great debate moment. So they're on split screen, and he has said, I'm questioning her stamina. And Hillary looks right at the camera and says, you go to 120 countries, you testify before Congress for 11 hours, then you can talk to me about stamina. And the funny thing was, on that split screen, as she was saying it, she was like getting taller and taller, and Donald was like leaning over more and more. And in fact, in all 3 of the debates, Donald looked like he had kind of, prepped for a 20-minute debate, and then, wait, I got another hour and 10 minutes? He kind of was really running out of gas in very obvious ways. That stamina was great. Hillary gave a wonderful answer. The last answer in the debate, Chris Wallace said, okay, you got a minute, just make your case. And then, you don't know the questions that you're going to get asked. You got a minute, make your case. And Hillary Clinton went right back to where she started. I have been working to empower families and children for more than 40 years, and if you have me as your president, that value is going to be what I'm going to carry in to office. We know we haven't had a woman president, but we've also never had a president who has made their entire career focused on the empowerment of families and kids. Knowing that if families and kids do well, the entire society is going to do well. So those were magnificent moments. Now, Donald had some memorable moments too. Just in the last debate, I can think of 3. He said, no one respects women more than me, but within about 2 minutes, he just looked at her and said, that nasty woman. And he really told you in that what he thinks about women, as he has with all of these horrible things he's said, including things he has said that he does to women. Horrible, horrible, especially in 2016, especially when his opponent is running to make history as the first woman president of the United States. It's time to break down some barriers, not put more barriers up to get in the way of women being successful. Donald also said that he was not sure he would accept the results of a Democratic election. Nobody's ever said this on a presidential debate stage before. I was a missionary in Honduras in 1980 and 81, and it was a military dictatorship. And so people there prayed for the day when they would get to choose their leaders in an election, and that the election result would be respected, and that then there could be a peaceful transfer of power. They prayed for that day. We take it for granted here. We think that's the way it is because we're used to it here, but in so many parts of the world, that's not the way it is. We have such a blessing in this system that we have, and for Donald Trump to stand on a stage or give a speech out to a crowd and say, no, these are going to be rigged elections, we can't trust it, I'm not going to accept the outcome, it's just outrageous. How can you talk down our democracy so much and think you should be the guy that should lead this democracy? Come on, come on. And the way I thought about it was this. Here's what he was doing. He started the campaign insulting, in his first speech, Mexican Americans are rapists and criminals. And then he's insulted, okay, Mexican Americans, other immigrants, Muslim families, Latinos, women, LGBT folks, a disabled reporter, a Gold Star family from Virginia who lost their son trying to save other people's lives, the Kaine family. He dissed them. He dissed John McCain, who was a POW in Vietnam for 4 years, and said, you're not a hero because you were captured. And so what happened in that debate was this. Donald Trump had insulted every group in the United States. There was nobody left to insult. So now he's going to insult the central pillar of American democracy. We cannot let him get away with that. We can't. It's shameful. And then, to make matters worse, put these things together, the issue came up about the Russian government trying to influence our election with cyber attacks. And the FBI has confirmed it. The Director of National Intelligence has confirmed it. Candidates get intelligence briefings, all four of us on both tickets. It has been in the news, so I'm not revealing anything I shouldn't. That's been part of the briefing. Donald Trump heard it. But when the issue came up on the stage about Russian efforts to influence elections, he said, we have no evidence that it was Russia. We have no evidence. Now earlier in the first debate, he said, well, that could be a 400-pound kid sitting in somebody's basement, right? But this time he says, we have no evidence, even though he's received the briefings, even though he's heard from our top generals and intelligence officials, he says, we have no evidence. So get this, a guy who won't defend the American democracy refuses to condemn a foreign leader trying to tinker with the American democracy. I mean, if you want just one more reason to make sure you turn out and vote between now and November 8th, we got to send a message to Russia or any other government. Don't think you can come in here and tinker around with an American election. We're going to do ours just fine. We don't need your help. We don't need your interference. We know how to do this here.
Whose side is he on?
In the weeks since the debate, Donald has kept it up, kept making outrageous claims. He's had a weird thing back and forth on Cuba. News has come out that he did deals in Cuba in violation of the embargo with Cuba when Fidel Castro was in control. But now he says what the president is doing to normalize relations with Cuba, he's not in favor of it. Hey, you can't have it both ways, Donald. You can't have it both ways. And right now, the American military is participating in a major military action with the Iraqi military to take the city of Mosul back from ISIS. It is underway right now. I've been to Iraq a number of times to talk to our leaders there about this operation, which was planned carefully. They had to get closer and closer, take territory, get closer and closer to the city of ISIS. Donald Trump said, well, they're just doing the invasion of ISIS to help Hillary Clinton get elected president. How dense do you have to be to say something like that? This has been an operation that's been planned for years. They needed to wait till the fall because the weather was better, and they needed to wait till they could take over the cities close to Mosul, so they had a launching pad. And so he is saying that. He's also saying the American military is a disaster. He's attacking the generals, saying that he knows more than the generals. I'll tell you something, as the father of a Marine who wants to know that the commander-in-chief understands things, when I hear Donald Trump call the military a disaster, say the generals don't know anything, when I hear the guy say John McCain isn't a hero and go after a Gold Star family, when I hear him stand on a stage and brag that he's not paying taxes and that makes him smart, you can't stiff our military by not paying taxes and then tell me you're going to be a great commander-in-chief. You can't stiff our veterans by not paying taxes and then say I'm going to be a great president for the vets. You can't stiff our teachers. You can't stiff students who need Pell Grants by not paying taxes and then jump up in the front of the parade and say, now I'm going to lead everybody. It doesn't work that way. It just doesn't work that way.
Whose side is he on?
Let's talk about what's at stake. It starts with not just issues. I'm going to talk about some issues, but it starts with values, because this is what's at stake. Reverend Higginbottom did a good job of painting a couple of the choices. It's between, can we be together, stronger together, or are we going to embrace a politics of division? That's big picture. But it's about the values of a person. Sometimes those of us in politics, we make a little mistake. I make this mistake, Louis, sometime. I'll talk about 5 or 6 issues, and issues are important. But this isn't a laundry list. What are our motivations? Voters sometimes want to know, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Let me tell you about Hillary. Hillary went to a Methodist youth group in the suburbs of Chicago in 1940. When she was in her teens, 40 years ago. She had a guy named Donald Jones who was her pastor. And Don Jones has influenced a lot of people. I've never met him. I want to meet him because I meet people around the country who say he was my youth minister. Don Jones took Hillary to see Reverend Martin Luther King in Chicago. Don Jones exposed her to the challenges faced by migrant families and others. That was different than what she knew, but she absorbed that lesson and broadened her horizons and decided, I'm going to battle for families and kids. She did it as a civil rights lawyer in the South. She did it as First Lady of Arkansas, First Lady of the United States, U.S. Senator, Secretary of State. My favorite Hillary story that tells you who she is and why she's doing this was when she was First Lady. And I can tell you different stories. This is my favorite one. Hillary really wanted to work with President Clinton to get health care done. You know, health care reform for everybody. Thank goodness President Obama kept at it, and now we have 20 million people with health insurance who didn't have it before. Hillary worked on that effort with President Clinton, and as is often the case, the effort to make progress fell short. Republicans in Congress blocked it. And they made it personal to Hillary. They called it Hillary Care, and then they went after it and labeled it Hillary Care so they could kind of beat it and beat her at the same time. And so it lost. And that loss was painful. It was painful to the First Lady. She wanted health care for all. It was painful because she'd been battling for things like this her whole life. And it was painful because they made it personal to her. Now here's the test of who a leader is. You put it all on the line for something you care about and you lose, and maybe you lose in a way that's very personal to you. Do you go away? Do you choose another issue? Do you say, I'll try it again in 10 years? Do you just complain and point the finger at somebody else? Those are the choices before you, but Hillary made a different choice. She said, okay, we failed at this thing I really wanted. We can't get health insurance for everybody. But can we get health insurance for every low-income child in this country? Can I figure out a way, working with Democrats and Republicans, to at least do that? And as First Lady, she led a bipartisan effort that did exactly that. 8 million children in this country have health insurance because Hillary Clinton wouldn't back down, wouldn't go away, wouldn't give up, wouldn't cast aside her values and her goals and her dreams. And I got to tell you, that's the kind of trait. That is the kind of trait that we want in a commander-in-chief and president. Don't back down, don't give up, don't go away. Every day won't go your way, but we want to make sure that you won't give up. And Hillary is not a person who's going to give up. That's who she is. That's who she is. And I'm a little bit that way too. I was a civil rights lawyer in Richmond for 17 years before I got into state politics. I've been a city councilman, mayor, lieutenant governor, and chairman of the Democratic Party and senator. And I battle. I battle for the things I care about. And I've learned You don't get them the first time you ask. Sometimes you don't get them the 5th time you ask. But if you just keep at it, and if it's right, you know, if the thing is right, the time will be right, and you just got to keep at it, and Hillary and I are in that same place. We want to serve others. We want to measure our life by how we serve others. That's what motivates us in this. A couple of issues that are important. Jobs in the economy. This is the primary concern that Americans have. Will there be an economy that works for everybody? President Obama doesn't get enough credit. He came in during the worst recession since the 1930s. We've added 15 million jobs. We've cut the unemployment rate in half. People's 401k policies are worth something again. Between 2014 and 2015, we saw the biggest one-year jump of people moving out of poverty upward between 2014 and 2015. And this president did it with almost zero help from one entire political party in this country. They didn't lift a finger to help as he was trying to turn our economy around. Okay? But if President Obama was here, he would say what I'm going to say next. Hey, we got a long way to go. There's still too many people who, because of the zip code where they live or the industry where they work, they don't see the ladder that they can climb. Everybody's got to see a ladder that they can climb. It can't just be GDP at the top or for a few people or a few businesses. Everybody's got to see a ladder that they can climb, and too many people don't. So Hillary and I have a plan to deal with that, and Donald Trump has a plan. Our plan, pretty simple, 4 pieces. Investments in infrastructure, manufacturing, and research. We're going to invest in the jobs of the 21st century. Clean energy, building bridges, roads, rail. That's what we're going to do. Hire people today, and then the work that they do, we can enjoy the benefit of that for decades. That's number 1. Number 2, we're going to train our workforce and make them the best skilled workforce in the country. And that's across the board. More early childhood education, more celebration of great teachers in our K-12 system, making it easier to get training opportunities. More affordable college, debt-free college for everybody, tuition-free college if your family makes less than $125,000 a year, and help to refinance debts if you're already out of college. We're going to do things to make wages fair. Raise the minimum wage so you don't have to work full-time and be below the poverty level, which is the case in this country if you have a dependent. I mean, we tell our kids work is important, but if we say work is important, hard work is the key. But then we have policies where you work full-time for minimum wage, and 65% of the people who do are women, and you have a dependent, and you're under the poverty level, then our words aren't matching our actions. If we think work is important, then we ought to have policies like a minimum wage that says work is dignified, and if you work full-time, you should be able to have a dignified living. And women should be paid equally for equal work. That's okay. What's hard about that? That's pillar 3. And the 4th pillar is let's focus on where the jobs are created. They're not created in the big institutions in Wall Street. American jobs are created by small businesses. I grew up in a house where my dad was a welder and ironworker. 5 employees in a tough year, 10 employees in a good year. And my mother, and my 2 brothers and me. Hillary's dad ran a drapery business, same kind of place. Small business, small business. 65% of jobs in this country are created by small businesses. So Hillary and I are going to make them easier to start, easier to finance, easier to hire employees, easier to get health insurance for your employees. And if we can grow our small business sector and make it innovative and entrepreneurial and easier to start, that's the best way to grow the economy. Those 4 plans, if you put them in place, independent analysts say it will lead to an economy that has grown by 10.5 million jobs in 4 years if you do the things I just described. Donald Trump, on the other hand, has a plan too. The heart of the plan is tax breaks for those at the very top. Trillions of dollars of tax breaks. Hillary called him on it in the debate. How's that going to help? We did it 10 years ago to tank the economy. So much pain, so many jobs lost, so many people lost their homes, so many 401ks that got reduced, or pension plans that went bust when we cut taxes at the top, like you said we're going to do again. And what Donald answered was, and he used a hand gesture I really like, I call it an abracadabra hand gesture. He said, no, if you cut taxes at the top, then those people will do all kinds of things that will make all kinds of good things happen for everybody down here. And I love that abracadabra. It's false. We tried it. It didn't work, and it won't work if we try it again. And that's why the economists who look at the Trump plan say, if we do what he wants, we won't add 10.5 million jobs. We won't add one job. We will lose 3.5 million jobs. So what's the difference between a Trump presidency and a Clinton presidency for the economy? 14 million jobs. I call that the difference between a you're hired president and a you're fired president. A couple of other issues, climate change. I mean, here's a controversial thing. Hillary and I believe in science. I mean, I hate to break it to you. I hope that doesn't disappoint you. We believe in science. We believe in science. The science says our climate is changing. Human production of CO2 is a big cause, and we ought to do something about it for the good of the planet, for the good of the economy, so that our kids and our grandkids can have a planet to enjoy just like we do. President Obama got 197 nations to come together and all make their own agreements about what they would do to battle climate change. This is tough. You can't get Congress to pass a Mother's Day resolution sometimes. Try getting 197 nations to do something big on an important issue. That's great. But Donald and Hillary and I will continue that and continue to fund the research to produce the clean energy economy. And look, if we master that, we'll be selling technology to the rest of the world and creating the clean energy jobs right here in the United States. Solar jobs in Florida, wind jobs in the Midwest and Southwest. That's what we'll be doing. On the other side of the ticket, Donald Trump says, and this is a direct quote, and check me on this, he says climate change is a hoax created by the Chinese. That is a direct quote. Michael Pence's running mate says it's a myth. All right, 12-step program. Step 1, you have to admit you have a problem. You cannot get to step 2, and you definitely can't get to step 12 unless you can admit you have a problem. Donald Trump and Mike Pence, what, climate change? There's no climate change. There's no climate change. They are not going to be able to solve this critical challenge if they don't believe it, and Donald Trump has said he wants to tear up that U.S.-led climate pact on his first day in office. Do you think the other nations who the U.S. led to the table to reach a deal are going to stay there and do what they say they're going to do if the leader of the deal tears it up and says, no, we're walking away and we're going to do whatever we want? No, this is a very, very serious issue. Medicare and Social Security. These are bedrock programs that are critically important to all Americans. Whether you're a recipient or a someday recipient, they're critically important. And they're two of the best programs that the U.S. government has ever enacted. Let me just a minute on the history of Social Security, because there's nobody here who was alive when Social Security was first passed. You're all much too young. So I got to tell you the story. Before Social Security passed, when FDR was president, this is what it was like to be a senior citizen in this country. In this country, you would work your whole life, you would raise your kids, and you would be the Little League coach, and you would be the Sunday school teacher, and you would do all the things in the community that stitch together your community into a great fabric. That's what you would do. Then you would retire, and within a very short time, a greater than 50-50 chance you would be poor. So all that work, and all that sweat, and all that giving to your own kids in your community, and then you would retire, and then it was greater than 50-50 that you would be poor. And FDR said, what kind of a society is this? We can do better by the people who brought us up, by the people who were raising us when we were young. And that's why Social Security got put in place. And over time it's changed. But now Social Security has cut the senior poverty rate to around 10%. Now that's 10% too much, but it's not 60%. Social Security worked to do exactly what it was designed to do. Donald Trump wrote a book in the early 2000s and said the right solution for Social Security would be to privatize it. See, he doesn't like this fact of it. Social Security is about current workers like me feeling an obligation to the people who raised me and chipping in a little bit out of my paycheck to help them just like they help me. It's a compact between the generations. Donald Trump says, no, we don't know any obligation between the generations. You ought to put money in just a private account and then at the end of your retirement, you just get what's there. But you don't owe any obligation to anybody other than yourself. And so we should privatize Social Security. That's what he said in a book. And Mike Pence's running mate was in Congress, and he was the champion of privatization. Long after President Bush stopped trying to do it, Mike Pence was championing. I'll tell you this, Hillary Clinton and I, we're not privatizing Medicare. We're not privatizing Social Security. We'll fight against any efforts to do it. We're going to make sure we protect it, we defend it, and in some areas in Social Security, we really need to expand it. If you're a woman who was not the principal wage earner, and then you become a widow, and then you're a widow for a long period of time, that benefit is really tough. Or if you're a woman that took a lot of time off, or a man for this reason, to raise children, and then you're out of the workforce for a long period of time, your benefit is necessarily enough to make sure that you're able to do okay when you retire. So we need to make some adjustments to Social Security to protect some people, and that's what Hillary Clinton and I are going to do. That's what we're going to do. Another topic, immigration reform. Pretty clear difference. Hillary and I want to reform our immigration system in a bipartisan way, just like President Reagan did 30 years ago, where we're going to have a path to citizenship for people who are willing to work hard, pay taxes, play by the rules, follow the laws. They'll have a path to citizenship. We will invest more in border security. We will make adjustments to the visa process to make it work better. We will help employers figure out a way to test the immigration bona fides of employees. We've got nearly 70 votes in the Senate, bipartisan, to get this done. It's not Republican or Democratic. There is a bipartisan desire to do immigration reform. And like the economic bill, we're going to put this one on the table in the first 100 days coming into a Hillary Clinton administration. The other side, they want to build a wall and become deportation nation. Deportation nation. They want to deport 16 million people. That's 11.5 million people who are here without documents, but also another 4.5 million American citizens who were born to people without documents. They're citizens under our Constitution, but Donald Trump and Mike Pence both support legislation that would take citizenship away from people who are currently U.S. citizens because they are born here. Can you imagine a deportation force trying to deport 16 million people, going house to house, school to school, business to business, neighborhood to neighborhood to do that? That's not who we are. There's a clear difference. We ought to do a comprehensive bipartisan reform. That's the right way to reform our system in accord with our values. There's so many issues. I'll just do one more because I mentioned this is an important one to me. Hillary's values were forged in her time working for kids. My values were forged in Honduras and working as a civil rights lawyer in Virginia. I deeply believe in equality. I deeply believe in it. I'm so glad we live in this country because can you imagine this? This will be the only time where I'm going to be kind of like Virginia pride up here, okay? The rest of it now, I'm just going to be talking about everybody in Florida and everybody. Be Virginia pride, just for a second. A lot of Virginians were the architects of those first documents, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. And they put some pretty good ideas in them. One of the ideas that Jefferson put in the Declaration of Independence was an interesting one. It had a paradox right in the sentence. All men are created equal. Okay, so equal, that's great. But wait a minute, men? And what if you're African American? And what if, but even though he wasn't living equal, and even though nobody at the time was, they still had the wisdom to say that that would be our principal value as a nation. I don't know that there's another nation that has said, measure us by this, equality, measure us by this. At Gettysburg, Abraham Lincoln said the same thing. And whether a nation dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal can long survive. This is who we are. This is our one value. We put one North Star up there and said, measure us by this. Now, you can look at our history. And here's what you're going to find. Our entire history is this equality story where a generation wakes up and says, wait a minute, here's who we said we would be, but slavery? How can we make that match? And so there's bloodshed, and there's a civil war, and we rewrite the Constitution to try to be a little more like the people we said we were going to be. Then 60 years later, wait a minute, here's who we said we were going to be, but women can't vote? How can we We can't match that up. So we got to change the Constitution so that we can be a little more like the nation that we said we were going to be. Then you get to the mid-60s and minorities can't vote equally. They can't rent housing. They can't get employment equally. And so we do the civil rights laws because we realize, wait a minute, we're not living the way we said we were supposed to live. And this generation's, addition, this generation's epiphany to our story, the new chapter has been waking up and saying, wait a minute, LGBT folks aren't treated equally to others. They should have the same opportunities in employment and housing. They should have the same ability to marry a lifelong companion and build a life together. And so we changed the law again to knock down a barrier and move a little bit closer to that North Star. A sailor can orient by a North Star, never get to it. Never get to it. We're not perfect people. We're never going to be perfect, but we ought to be orienting toward that value that the founders were wise enough in 1776 to say would be the test of this nation. That's why Hillary and I are strongly supporting LGBT equality, including full marriage equality. We support it. The other guys want to put people on the Supreme Court to roll it back. That's why Hillary and I support equal pay for women and women being able to make their own health care decisions, just like men can make their own health care decisions. It's about equality. It's about equality. That's why we support expanded voting rights. You can't be equal if you can't participate. We've expanded the franchise over time, but just in the age of Obama, for some reason the other side has decided, after being a supporter of expanded voting rights for 150 years. I mean, it was a Republican Congress that passed the 15th Amendment to say you couldn't block somebody from voting if they were African American. It was a Democratic president working with a Republican Congress that passed the 19th Amendment to say women could vote. It was a Republican president working with a Democratic Congress that passed the amendment to lower the voting age from 21 to 18. Republicans have been, from the days of Abraham Lincoln until the presidency of Barack Obama, a pro-voting rights party. But during the presidency of Barack Obama, for some odd reason, they've turned it around, and now in so many states across this country, what you see happening is Republican governors and legislators narrowing voting down, narrowing down early vote, more ID requirements to be able to vote. And you see this happening again and again. Hillary and I believe everybody should be able to vote. It shouldn't be hard. You should be able to be registered automatically on your 18th birthday. You turn 18, you are registered. You turn 18, you are registered. States shouldn't be able to do wacky things and encourage voters, and we should make it easier to vote early and make it more convenient to vote rather than harder. It's fundamentally about equality. These equality issues really, really matter. And part of the equality issue that matters too is just the way we talk about each other. Why would we want to have a politics again where it's okay to trash and insult and degrade people? I mean, it may draw a viewership on TV, but it's no way to run a country. It is no way to run a country. And Hillary won't be part of that, and I won't be part of it either. Well, I told you that I was going to get to the last point. This is the important, how are we going to win? How are we going to win? Raise your hand if you have volunteered at all or are volunteering. Give them a round of applause. That's great. If you have not volunteered and you would like to join on, text together to 47246 and you can join the crew of volunteers over the last 15 days to help people get out to polling places, to answer people's questions. That's so very, very important here in Florida, because I said you guys are checkmate. If you win, we got this thing. We got it. Absolutely, we got it. But the last thing I want to do, though, is tell you, while I like some of the polls I'm seeing, you can't take anything for granted. We just can't take anything for granted. We can't take anything for granted because we were ahead in the polls on Labor Day, but by September 26th, it was dead heat even all across the country and in Florida, too. If they could get tied up in 2.5 weeks in September, they could get tied up 2.5 weeks at the end of October. Can't take anything for granted. Can't take anything for granted because this has been a season of surprises. There have been some polls that have been wrong. There have been some pundits that have been wrong. And very few people thought the GOP would nominate Donald Trump as their candidate. You can't take anything for granted. You can't take anything for granted because we're in uncharted waters. We don't know what it's like to have a foreign nation engaging in cyber efforts to undermine and influence the outcome of an American election. This is new territory for us. You can't take anything for granted. You can't take anything for granted because Donald Trump's whining and saying it's all rigged. Now, I know that doesn't surprise you, right? Nobody had any doubts that Donald Trump was going to lose and then say, you know, on second thought, maybe I shouldn't have run the most divisive campaign in the history of the United States. There's a good lesson learned for me in that, and I'll just have to keep that in. He's not going to do that. If he loses, he's going to say it was everybody else's fault, just like they rigged the Emmys against The Apprentice. You know, now they're rigging the election against me. I'm just a poor billionaire, and everybody's against me. Everybody's against me, right? So the only way, we're not going to be able to stop Donald Trump from whining, but what we can do is stop anybody from believing him when he whines. If we win this, and hopefully we win it big, he can whine all he wants, but nobody will believe him, because the message will be clear that he lost because he ran a divisive campaign, and Americans rejected it and decided to embrace a stronger together campaign. I'll tell you another reason. We can't take anything for granted, because wouldn't you like to have a Congress that would be willing to work with the president from Lois? I mean, wouldn't you like that? The better Hillary does, the more House members will elect, the more senators will elect. You've got a great guy in Patrick Murphy from right here. Right here. He is running against Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio said Donald Trump is a con man and Donald Trump is dangerous. Therefore, I support Donald. Whoa. Wait a minute. How can that work? This is his quote. Donald Trump is dangerous. Quote 1. 2. Donald Trump is a con man. Quote 2. Quote 3. And I'm going to support. Whoa. He must have had a different math teacher than I had. I don't think you can add those first two variables and come up with that conclusion that I'm going to support Donald if he won't stand up against Donald Trump. And there are plenty of Republicans who are. We live in a nation where 19% of our Congress is women, and that's the most it's ever been, and that ranks us 75th in the world, below the global average. 19%. We have made it uniquely difficult to elect women to federal office for some reasons I understand and some reasons I don't. Let me give you a comparison. U.S. 19%. In Iraq, in their national legislative body, 26% women. In Afghanistan, their national legislative, 28% women, and we're at 19. Number one is Rwanda. They're about 65% women. You ought to pull the list up someday and look at it, because it's fascinating. It's not like there's a good continent and a bad continent. It's not like there's a good culture in terms of a dominant religion and bad. No, it's variable all over the world. It's a fascinating list. But what it will tell you, if you're honest, is America's good at a lot of things. We're good at a lot of things. We're great at a lot of things, and we ought to be proud about those. But part of being a great nation is being able to look in the mirror and say, we're not good at this, and we want to be better at this. We are not good at electing women to higher office, and Hillary's trying to do something that's never been done. Have any of you ever tried to do something that hadn't been done? Or do something for the first time? You know, in your political career, in your family, in your neighborhood, in your workplace, among friends, tried to do something different or do something for the first time that had never been done? Have any of you ever been the kind of person that you had a dream and you wanted to go after it, and you had people tell you the time isn't right for you, or you're not the right person, or you got to wait your turn, or I just don't think this is going to work out? You had a dream and you wanted to go after it. Somebody poured some cold water on it. Sometimes the person pouring the cold water is an enemy that doesn't want you to get what you want. Sometimes it's a friend who's saying, I don't want you to get your hopes up. I don't want you to be disappointed. Sometimes it's not even external at all. We all have doubt in us. We all carry doubt within us, and sometimes when you're going after something that's a big dream, your doubts can start to work on you. I'm going to tell you something about Hillary Clinton. She's heard that her entire life. She's had a headwind of people telling her, you can't do this. This is a man's profession. Why don't you smile more? You're not likable enough. She doesn't look presidential, does she? She has heard that her entire life, but she has not let it turn her around. She's not let it stand in the way, and she's not going to let anybody stand in your way. All right, last thing. This is my request on this. You can't take anything for granted. I'm gonna give you a thought to put in your brain. that you should keep in your brain for 15 days so that we can do the work